This episode is supported by the Women's Health Clinic. At the Women's Health Clinic, you'll be seen by our accredited menopause specialists working to the latest international clinical guidance. We believe that knowledge is power. When you understand what is changing in your body and why, you can make decisions with clarity and confidence and feel back in control of your health. We really take the time to listen to your symptoms using evidence-based assessment and testing where appropriate, and explain what's happening in a way that actually makes sense. From there, we support women to explore all effective treatment options, including prescriptions when needed. Our aim is simple: to optimise women's healthcare wherever you are. No fannying around. Find out more at thewomenshealthclinic.eu.
Welcome back to Fannying Around, the podcast where we talk hormones, women's health, sex, and the kind of life admin no one warned us would have us asking ChatGTP if it's normal to feel angry at the dishwasher. I'm Rosie, and I'll be joined by Katie, menopause nurse, specialist, and walking hormone encyclopedia. Yes, she's got that at the bottom of her email. She hasn't, but she definitely should have. She sees women in clinic every week who are convinced they're losing their shit. We're here to reassure you you're not. You're just running on fumes and your estrogen has buggered off. Today then, we're fannying around with Lisa, and I need to warn you now, this is not your standard few hot flushes and a few dodgy periods story. Lisa went to the gynaecologist to talk about headaches, perimenopause, and hopefully come away with some HRT. Instead, she came away with a stage 3 cancer diagnosis. And somehow, in the middle of all that, she'll tell you that those headaches saved her life. It's a no-nonsense episode. And it is funny in places, because Lisa is Lisa. But it's also one of those conversations that will absolutely make you think, when was my last smear test? When did I take my own symptoms seriously? When did I last put myself first? Right, lecture over, deep breath. Let's fanny around with Lisa.
Today, we are talking to Lisa. So, as I'm sure all listeners know, what we do is we like to find these brilliant women who have got a story to tell, and it is, the running theme is hormones and how your hormones shaped your journey, or what is your journey and what was the role that your hormones or your perimenopause or menopause played in that. So, Lisa, I mean, I can give as many intros as I like, but I think it's probably going to be better for you to say a little bit about who you are. And first of all, how did you feel when you saw that we did a shout out wanting to talk to menopausal or perimenopausal women?
I thought it was a great idea. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff, as you know, and I have a story that's maybe a little bit different to a lot of women's, and I think it's important to share that sometimes, stuff that I've been through, and women getting themselves checked and going to see the right people. So I was happy to share my story with everybody. I don't mind talking about things. I'm not shy.
Good.
So tell us a little bit about you then. Where do you live? What do you do?
So I live in Javier in Spain. I've been here for 23 years. I'm 53, 54 in a couple of months, and I look after dogs in my own home, which is something I sort of did on the side, but has now become a full-blown business, and I love it.
So your menopause journey then, Lisa, it didn't begin with a few missed periods and a few hot flushes. Tell us a little bit about how old you were and what happened.
So I was 47 years old. So this was 2019 when, but I think it had been probably going on for a couple of years before that, but nothing that was really standing out to me. And I'd been suffering with headaches like every day for quite a long time. And I'd gone through various different channels. I'd gone to the doctors, given the standard like painkillers that you are. And I was referred to a neurologist, had a scan on my head that showed nothing. I went to a rheumatologist that sort of checked everything, made sure there was no sort of autoimmune stuff going on, and they couldn't get to the bottom of it. And my periods, I guess, had been a little bit all over the place. I was sort of 20 days 1 month, 40 days for the next. And I was sort of, at that age, and I'm thinking it's got to be my hormones, let's go and speak to gynae and see what they're all about. So that's what I did. I asked to be referred to gynae.
And it was really hard work, wasn't it? These headaches you've been suffering were really debilitating, weren't they?
Yeah. So, it was like hard work, every day when you're feeling like that, it's difficult to, concentrate. And, it was like feeling like I had a massive hangover every day and, you just can't be bothered to do anything. And I'd started sort of a little bit of dog sitting, just a little bit extra, like not long before this all happened. So then I got the appointment with gynae. I'd been making a list, as long as your arm, of things that the more you look into it, that were possible signs for menopause. I wanted to get my point across and get some help. So I thought anything I can put down will help. I had a bit of bleeding after sex a couple of times. We went camping literally about 2 weeks before my appointment, and had a bit of business and bled quite a bit after. I didn't think anything of this, but I added that to my list of symptoms. So when I had my appointment with the gynae, they did a smear test. Now, I've had gynae issues in the past. I had polycystic ovaries. I had surgery for blocked fallopian tubes. I had fertility issues. So I was sort of more than used to having internals every time I saw a gynae. So I really didn't think anything of that. I had a bit of bleeding after that, but a smear test, sometimes it happens. Again, didn't think anything. She said that she would see me the next day because this was like in the maternity area at the hospital. So she said, I'd see you around in the gynae office. I can have a better look at things there. And so that's what I did. She did another sort of check and said, come back for your follow-up and we can talk about HRT and stuff then. So I went away and that was that. I got called in for an appointment 2 weeks later. I thought they must have had a cancellation. That's happened before. I've been called in early, and I was with a different gynae. And he said to me that I had a tumour. So I was like, tumour? He was talking to me in Spanish. My Spanish is okay, but not always the best. So then you're thinking, right, speak to me in English. And he said, yeah, there's cancer there. But he said, it's very small from what we can see. And, I'm going to have a look now and check, see what I can see and what I can feel. And I think it'll be a case of have a surgery. You'll have a hysterectomy and that'll be the end of that. And I'm thinking, happy days, let's get rid of everything and I'll be fine. It'll be over and done with before I know about anything, and this could be resolve all my hormonal issues as well. So it was, I took it as a win in some respects, I didn't really sort of dwell on it too much. He did his checks and he said, yeah, it's all very small. I can see it's like less than a centimetre. So that'll be that. So then I had follow-up scans, normal like procedure for that. So chest X-ray. I think I had an MRI and a CT, and they confirmed that it was all confined to my cervix, and I would have the surgery a couple of weeks. So it was a month. Literally, I had my hysterectomy a month after I'd seen him from start to finish.
Gosh. And did you have any idea of what that meant, Lisa? Did you know that, or were you just?
Yeah, because I'd heard other women talk about the fact that they'd had hysterectomies and they'd felt so much better afterwards as well. So I felt that because of my sort of gynae issues I had had in the past, that it could be good for me. I could just get myself on some HRT and everything would be great. I had my ovaries removed as well. So I literally had all my womanly organs removed during that surgery.
How was the surgery, Lisa?
So It was fine. It was a very tough recovery. You know, it's a big surgery. It's not your standard hysterectomy. You have a radical hysterectomy, and they take everything away. They take your cervix and the top part of your vagina, and they all the tissues surrounding that to get good margins. And I also had 25 lymph nodes removed. So I was called back in a couple of weeks later, and they said they had found micromets in 3 of my lymph nodes, which pushed me up to a stage 3C1. They originally thought I was a stage 1B.
And can we, sorry, just going back to that, Lisa, what does that mean for all of those people that are listening? What does micromets mean? What are the consequences of this?
It's a metastasis, so it means that it's spread outside of where the original tumor is. So, you know, it spread to my lymph nodes, which once it's in the lymph system, then it can spread anywhere really, you know. So automatically, as soon as it's in a lymph node, it's classed as stage 3C1. You could have had a much bigger tumor and been in the same area and it not go anywhere else and be a lower stage, you know. So
Right.
normally, when you're a higher stage, they would just do chemotherapy and radiation. They only do the hysterectomies when it's a low stage cancer. And this is
Okay.
why they did that. Obviously, one little cell that they've picked up, the only way they can find that is through doing pathology. It won't show up on a scan, any kind of
Okay.
scan. So there's no way they could have known that beforehand. He said that they'd got everything. I had clear margins, but obviously they want to make sure there's nothing floating around. So it was then scheduled that I would have chemotherapy and radiotherapy.
Can I just go back, Lisa, because I know you, and this is all very matter of fact talking on a podcast. But
Yeah,
to go to your gynae to expect to be talking about menopause, which is bad enough in isolation, but then for a month later to be diagnosed with stage 3 cancer and to be having a hysterectomy and, in your words, most of your womanly bits whipped out, that's
yeah,
a lot. We talk about hormone fluctuations on this podcast predominantly, but that's a huge amount to take in, um,
yeah,
and cope with. And you know, we all know people close to us that have been on a cancer journey, and I think yours have been quite
yeah,
inspiring with family members and friends.
yeah.
But how did you deal with that mentally at that point? That because that's a very short period of time to get your head around that as well.
Yeah. I mean, with the headaches I was having, I was quite moody, I would say, before my surgery. You know, for quite a long time, you know, I would be emotional, I wouldn't have a lot of patience, and my other half probably did get like a lot of that. You know, I was always sort of apologize, you know, I can't help it, you know. So I knew that I was the problem, and you know, but the headaches do drag you down. And when I had the surgery, literally the minute I woke up and everything was removed, the headaches were gone.
Wow.
So kind of felt better. Although I was in pain, I did feel better to a certain extent. And I think for me, I never really got emotional about the cancer. I never cried about it. It was because I went in, and when I was told there was a solution there straight away, it was like, right, this is going to be fine. I don't see any problems. And then when I got told that it had spread and I was a much higher stage, again, he said to me, "We've got all the cancer. You've got clear margins. You know, it's this is just preventative." So I didn't feel like a lot of women that are having to just go into chemotherapy or radiotherapy, they're always waiting for their cancer to shrink
Yeah.
and to see if it's gone. Where in my mind, although they don't tell you until you finish treatment, I always just took the positive of what I heard. So I just felt like they got it all.
It's
So
gone.
it was I never felt like I've never really felt like I had cancer. It was just something that I had to go through that didn't make me feel great for a while, and that was really what I had to deal with rather than that uncertainty. I didn't sort of let that get on top of me too much.
And do you feel, because I think it's really interesting listening to you talk about, the certainty, almost feeling like, wow, yeah, I've got cancer and I'm going to have a hysterectomy, but in comparison to how I felt for the last X amount of years, and actually this is a solution. Somebody's giving me a solution for
Yeah,
my
yeah.
symptoms that I think are associated with my menopause. That's
And I
really
felt like I was right as well.
yeah.
I knew that it was my hormones all along, and I felt like I knew it. The fact that it changed afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we do often know. I always say to my patients that I do see in clinic, if you think it's your hormones, I think it's your hormones. And let's go with that until we can prove otherwise, or until we find another reason,
Yeah,
because we know our bodies. We do.
exactly, exactly.
So, having a hysterectomy and being diagnosed with cancer, you originally wanted to go on HRT, didn't you, Lisa? Katie, there are risks, or certainly information, whether it be true or not, surrounding HRT and cancer. Am I right?
Well, yes, yeah, but yeah, that's a lot to unpick, actually. So, when when we look at what are the risks associated with HRT, so we have, HRT is not all equal. So you have synthetic hormones and you have body identical hormones, and I think it's really important to know that they are very different things. So the risks associated with synthetic hormones are far higher than the risk associated with transdermal, and those risks really are applicable to the risk of breast cancer. So I think for this purpose, because I know that Lisa will be talking about body identical hormones, let's look at that. So what is the impact that taking your hormones has on your uterus? So your estrogen thickens the lining of your uterus and your progesterone thins it. So if we have a uterus, we have to be really careful that we get the balance of progesterone and estrogen right, because otherwise we can cause a higher risk of endometrial cancer. And for some women having that hysterectomy, and it wasn't long ago, Rosie, that we spoke to a lady that had a hysterectomy because she couldn't tolerate the progesterone. So yes, for some women HRT is easier without a uterus, because we don't have to think about protecting it.
It was for me, post surgery, my gynaecologist, he was all for me taking HRT, but
Brilliant.
he didn't want me taking it like for a while after my surgery and during my treatments, because he said of the risk of like thrombosis is slightly increased with the estrogen. So he didn't want me to take it during this period.
And I'm just going to unpick that, because myth busting is my bag, Lisa. That's actually not true. So I can see why increase in blood clot or stroke or cardiovascular event used to be associated, but it's with the synthetic form of estrogen. But with
Yeah.
transdermal hormones or micronized progesterone, there is no increased risk of thrombosis. But hell, great. He said you could have HRT. Brilliant. Let's not knock him, because he was on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, I've been speaking to surgeons recently, actually, about having a surgery, and they're all like, "Oh no, you have to stop taking your HRT for a period of time, like 10 days before and 10 days after." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be able
No.
to walk." Literally, if I don't have it for a day, I know about it.
So let's unpick this, because I think that this is very interesting. You should ask them this question if you're feeling brave. So if they were going to do a surgery on somebody that was 25, would they give them hormone blockers before they came in for their surgery? They wouldn't. And actually, the hormones that you're taking are exactly the same as you've had your whole life.
Yeah,
So your body,
yeah,
your receptors in your cells cannot tell the difference between your estrogen that you're taking now and your estrogen that's released from your ovaries. Therefore, there is absolutely no risk. And I can't give clinical advice on the podcast, and actually I'm sitting on my hands, Lisa, but I would, perhaps do a bit of a deep dive into that, or maybe just nod politely, but whatever feels comfortable for you.
Absolutely, and just like, yeah, do it anyway, sort of thing.
Because you'll feel awful, you'll feel really bad, and what we know, and the irony.
I know, I do. Literally a day, and I can feel like my
Of
hands are like
course, of
hurting, and
course.
it's like everything. I know sometimes I'll be laying in bed of a night time and I think, why do I ache so much tonight? And then it's like, did I take my Lenzetto spray today? And then I think I
Yeah,
didn't, and that's why. And it's like pain relief, really.
absolutely.
But yeah, that's very
Do you know why
interesting.
that happens?
And they're not menopause specialists.
No, of course they're not. Do you know why that happens, Lisa? So your estrogen is a super strong anti-inflammatory hormone, and it
Absolutely.
sits really nicely in all your joints and your muscles. And when you have inflammation from, walking around for 50 years, then your estrogen will really get rid of or slow down that inflammation. But when you don't have enough because you've forgotten your HRT, or because you're perimenopausal, or perhaps even because you're before your period, then everything gets very inflamed and stiff and sore.
Well, this was what I had to deal with, really, like for sort of the first year. It was because I didn't have any HRT. So I was just taking an over the counter product, Flavia Nocta. You might have heard of this, and it's got like soy in it. This was enough actually to help with the flushes. I mean, it was, about the hot flushes that are gonna come, like, at the beginning, but it was the chill flushes as well. Oh my god, I think they were worse, and, my joints were terrible. I'd squat down on the floor to get something out of the freezer, and I'd be having to shout the other half to come and get me back up again because, my knees just wouldn't push me up, and the joint pain was terrible, and
Lisa,
mm.
you're a really positive person, and I'm loving this. But take us back to how you felt then. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think, oh, this is it now? This is how life in my late 40s, early 50s look, or did you were you pinning all your hopes on the HRT? What did you think?
I think I knew that would help me because obviously I had lost something in my body that needed to be replaced. So at some point it was going to be replaced. And I knew that it wasn't going to be a quick fix, that these things can take a few months to really get in your system and help you, and that would happen. And, my body would settle down, hopefully, at some point. I mean, when all this was going on, when I started my treatment, we went into lockdown. So there wasn't really, no one was doing anything. I mean, the positive for that was I felt like I wasn't missing out. I got to go out every day when everyone else was stuck at home. I had a little jaunt to Benidorm to go and get my radiotherapy and see the outside world. But other than that, I didn't want to do anything. I was quite happy, just sitting on my bed, like binge watching box sets, and that was it really. So it was, I just sort of made my own comfort really, and that was it. So
And we talk about life events and hormonal fluctuations linked to these life events and these huge milestones in people's lives. So just to reiterate, you'd gone through your cancer journey and your own menopause journey, then got thrown into lockdown, which kind of from our conversation prior to the podcast presented both some positives and some negatives really, didn't it? So the positives were that you had time to sort of reflect on your health, how you felt, how you looked, your weight, which we spoke about in depth, which I think we're going to lean into in a moment, but also your lifestyle as well and what you were doing for a job. So what happened sort of during, and I mean, your life completely changed really, didn't it, in every way?
yeah, so as we said, I was working for an online company. I enjoyed the work I was doing, not so much who I was working for. I think it was I was starting to lose patience, and people were saying to me, you should just give that up and maybe just do more with the doggies and stuff. And anyway, because I was everything was shutting down. Like, it was a company in the UK, and I was selling like fruit and veg to like juicing companies, and they were all shutting down. So I lost my job at the time. Now, that was kind of a relief in a way, that I didn't have to think about that. And because of the position I was in, I got sick pay for like a couple of years, and it sort of timed in really well with um, when everything started happening again and my business started growing. It saw me through until then, really. So again, that was something positive. Things happen, I believe, like at the right time for the right reason. And I could have lost my job and been perfectly healthy and just had no income, full stop. People weren't going on holiday. There was no dogs to look after. So I had that support through getting my sick pay. And eventually I sold the apartment that I lived in and I bought a house, and I'm busy as ever at the moment. I don't know if you can hear doggies in the background, but I have a few in the house and they're not behaving themselves. But I'm busy and it's great for me. I feel like I couldn't go out and do a manual job like all day long, and I don't feel like I've got the mental capacity to sit in front of a computer and do that kind of job all day long, like an office job. I feel like my memory is just not what it was, and this is great for me. I can write it all down, and I know where I'm at every day.
Campaign tirelessly that perimenopause and menopause, whatever way it comes, whether it comes abruptly and surgically, or whether it comes insidiously over a period of 10 years, it can be, with the right information and the right knowledge and the right treatment, it can be a really positive turning point. It can shape your whole, the whole of your future.
Yeah,
And that really sounds like that's what happened to you.
yeah.
So, Lisa, you spoke about lockdown and all the positives that came out of that. The weight gain that you experienced through menopause, perimenopause, menopause, through your illness, and now in lockdown, that was something that, in your words, was getting you down, that you wanted to address. Your lifestyle and your job have attributed to that, but actually you're quite the gym bunny now that you weren't before. And you're going to go on to Manjaro and the jabs and tell us what life looks like now for you.
But my weight has sort of been up and down like throughout my whole life. I'm genetically disposed to being bigger. We're all bigger in our family. And I think before I got ill, I was walking a lot and I enjoyed that. My weight was lower. And then obviously just sitting around and sitting on my bed for a year doing nothing, that doesn't help. And then it wasn't so easy to get out and do what I'd done before because, there was a lot of pains and aches and stuff. And, I felt I could only like push myself so far, and I would do a little bit at a time.
How much weight did you put on, do you think?
So I'd put on probably 4 stone, maybe 3.5 stone. Um, and so about a year and a half ago, all the weight loss stuff sort of came about. And I went to my doctor and I said, I have these aches and pains and I feel like losing the weight would really help me with this. So I started on Wegovy because that's what was available here. And about 6 months later, I went on to Manjaro and I've lost about 4.5 stone.
Gosh.
I think it's about 67 kilos or something like that.
Goodness me.
Yes, so it's like I can fit in a pair of size 8 jeans now, which I don't think I've ever done, like, probably since I was a teenager. So yeah, I've sort of lost everything I have to lose. It's just, have a bit of a, like, loose skin obviously now, and I've got, a muscle separation, so I have a bit of a belly there, which is why I've been speaking to surgeons. Maybe I can get that sorted, but I feel great. I started off doing Pilates and doing a bit of walking, and I've progressed and I do bar classes, which are intense, and I love it. It's every day. I've done 2 classes this morning, so it's good.
When you compare the Lisa that's sat in front of us now to the Lisa that, perhaps pre-perimenopause, so Lisa in her late 30s, Do you think that's the biggest difference? What are they comparable? Are you the same person but better, or the same person but worse? What would you say?
Um, no, I think I'm better. I think I'm sort of quite chilled these days. I don't let too much get on top of me. Obviously having a job that I love and having a job that I can work around things that I want to do and things that I enjoy is much better, not having to answer to someone else and, living life how I want and, uh, earning a good living from it as well, probably earning a lot more than I would if I went out and worked for someone else. And it's just nice. You take those other stresses out of the life, really, so I enjoy that.
What impact do you think your hormones have on your life now, Lisa?
Um, so Where I've lost weight, I think my hormones are a little bit unbalanced again. I've been getting a bit headachy again, and they say, "Oh, these are just tension headaches," which I don't feel like I've got a lot of tension in my life, but they come on more at the end of the day, and that's what they say they are. Um, so I think that's just obviously where my fat was storing probably a lot of estrogen for me, and I don't have any now. That probably has thrown me off a little bit.
Yeah, but also, and I think this is where the education around HRT is really important, because your HRT will fluctuate throughout your whole life, because your hormones fluctuate your whole life. Even though you don't have your ovaries,
Yeah,
we still have fluctuating cyclical levels of hormones. And you're right, yeah, your fat does hold some estrogen, but it probably would have happened anyway, Lisa.
yeah,
And actually, we know that, when we're looking at your HRT, it should always, be titrated. So moved up and down in accordance with your symptoms, and
yeah,
not blood tests. They're not helpful. But, if you're thinking, oh, actually, I am a bit achy, or my headaches have come back towards the end of the day. Well, it's probably because your estrogen's at its lowest at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah,
And so, I think it's really just empowering women, I believe, in not just saying, oh, well, this is as good as it gets. And I love that the whole way through your journey, that's what you've said. No way, no
yeah.
way. Like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I'm going to be better. And actually, you're quite empowered.
I did quite a lot of homework myself, and I think you have to because, there is a lack of hormone specialists. I mean, your clinic wasn't around when I went through all of this. You were working for Cancer Care, and that's how we met originally. So there was, pages on Facebook, groups of women that would talk to each other, and they had a lot of knowledge. A lot of these women, they'd really done their homework, and some in America where there's maybe more services available. And, that's really where I sort of got my information from. And I had to try a few things before I really settled on what worked for me. And as I said, I use the Lenzetto spray now, which is great when it's available. Um, and it's something that I can control myself, if I'm feeling a bit off or if I feel like, well, I've done a lot of exercise today. I can give myself that little extra spray if I feel like I need it. And, it seems to be the thing that seems to work for me the best. And most of the time, I'm sort of okay, I think, with it.
Just listening to you, Lisa, I think what strikes me, and if any ladies are listening and they can, there's some takeaways from this conversation, is, we speak to a lot of ladies that sort of put their symptoms aside and blame it on something else. They're tired because of children or they're stressed because of work. And I think what's really admirable is you didn't take any nonsense and you informed yourself and you said, no, actually, I'm going to go to the neurologist, but if I don't get answers there, I'm going to go to the gynae. And you owned it, and thank God you did.
Well, exactly. I always say those headaches saved my life. And
Yeah.
I didn't see that same gynecologist for probably a couple of years. And when I did see her, I said, I just want to thank you for being on the ball, and doing your job because it could have, been something that was missed. But she wasn't there to give me a smear test. She was there because I was there for something else, but she picked up on what I'd written down. And you have to advocate for yourself, I think. If you feel that's what you need, go into your doctor. And that's what I've done. I went in and I said, I want HRT. My periods haven't finished, but that doesn't mean that I don't need some help with my hormones. And I say this to other people, you need as much help in peri.
So many. So many.
I love the way you took charge, and I absolutely admire your positive attitude, Lisa, and the fact that you went into the doctor with a list. And we always say, don't we, Katie, it's information. You've got to be informed.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, you've got to do your own homework.
Yeah.
But you looked after yourself, Lisa, and even now you realise that time and space, because as women, as mums, in the workplace, just after our conversation, Lisa, I thought, gosh, I must book a smear test. And you hear that all the time, don't you? It's just something we promise ourselves that we'll get round to doing. And I've not had one for 2 or 3 years. And you forget, life gets busy. So I guess if you're listening to this, do it.
Absolutely.
Do it today, now. Not right now, listen to the end of the podcast, but do book your smear test or whatever you've been putting off with regards to your health.
And it is Cervical Cancer Month as well. So, it is. And I don't care if people get bored of me sharing my story every year. If one person, it makes them just go and get that check. And it's 2 seconds. And, it really is, it's not a big thing. It's
about putting yourself first, I
absolutely.
think. Whatever it is, just make sure that you're a priority too.
And I love a list. Whenever I go to the doctor, I always write everything down, because sometimes you can get into talking and forget things that you wanted to say, or you feel like, oh, I've said enough now. And it's print it out, give it to the doctor, let him read through it and pick up the things that are more important. And that's what I did. If I'd sat there, I probably would have listed off a few things and thought, oh, that's enough now, I'm going to shut up. And it's but it was there in black and white, and I just gave it to her, and, she can read through it and she can see what's the more important things that need to be dealt with. And if I'd just gone in and said, oh, I'm a bit achy, I'm a bit headachy, and this, that, and the other. But the thing that I didn't think was that important was obviously the most important thing. So, it's always good to go informed. And
that's a really good tip, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Write the list. But there is just that awkwardness about reading it out. So give it to them.
Yeah.
Give it to them. And
you do feel like you're
do their
droning
job.
on and feel like you're a bit of a hypochondriac sometimes when you're listing off all these things. And I think, no, if you just give it to them, then it's easy, isn't it? They can read it all.
I think also as well, there are women that I meet, and we all meet, that go to their doctors with their list dutifully, all of the things that they've researched and done, and they go to their doctors, and actually, time and time again, they're told that, your bloods are normal, or you're not in menopause, you're not in perimenopause, there's nothing we can do. And I think if, another thing comes out of this podcast, it is that the advocating for yourself,
Yeah.
isn't it? If you feel rubbish and, there isn't an obvious reason why, then keep going. Don't take no for an answer. And, women shouldn't be forced into the private system. So, keep going to see your doctor, and, take a list of symptoms, and, make sure that you know what you're entitled to and what your rights are, and, really make sure that you're empowered with knowledge.
I think in the last 6 years since, obviously I went through all of this, I think I can see that there's just so much more now on the telly and people talking about perimenopause, and that, women should be treated like during this phase and not just like once their periods have stopped for a year or whatever, that these symptoms can be helped. And I think it is getting better slowly but surely, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. We're getting there, but fight the good fight. And
Yeah.
absolutely, we should all be talking about hormones, menopause. I don't care whether people are bored. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Because
And they need more menopause specialists. I mean, there's people like you, but it's like within the health systems as well. They should have that available, and not going to see your GP that really hasn't got a clue, about this stuff. It's
Absolutely. We won't stop until, I don't think that we're talking about menopause or perimenopause or hormones enough until every woman, knows, regardless of whether you choose to take HRT or not. That's not the fight. The fight is, having your options. Do you have options? Do you know what your choices are? And do you feel empowered enough to make those decisions about your health? And that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Lisa, final question that we ask everybody. If you could talk to a younger Lisa, a Lisa in her 20s, 18 to 20s, and give her one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know really. I can't. I don't know. I can answer that one really. I've not thought about that. It's just, yeah. I just think,
Have a smear test.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. No, I would definitely do that. But for me, that was something that I've always done anyway, because of the issues I had when I was younger. So for me, I've always seen a gynae. But yeah, like, yeah, be wise on the things that women should know, and cervical cancer, checking your boobies and all the rest of it, and make sure you know what you're looking for and in these problems that we could come up with.
I think a 20-year-old Lisa already had it all sorted anyway, didn't
Maybe,
she?
probably thought
I'm
she
pretty
did.
sure.
Probably thought she did.
She wasn't suffering any fools. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your
Oh,
story with us
anytime.
today.
More than welcome. It's been
Yeah,
nice
thank you so,
chatting.
so much.
If it helps somebody, then it's all good.
It will. It will. I know it will. Thank you. I appreciate your time very
Oh,
much.
you're more than welcome. You were there for me, so it's the least I could do.
This episode of Fannying Around is supported by Clear Boost, a women's health supplement range I created after years of working in clinic and seeing how confused and overwhelmed women felt by supplements. Each product is designed to support the symptoms that I see most often: hormone changes, low energy, poor sleep, low mood, and stress, using ingredients chosen for their specific roles in hormone regulation, energy production, and nervous system support. The idea was to replace long, random supplement lists with a small number of targeted formulas so women know what they're taking and why. Find out more at clearboost.eu.
Okay, so I think I'm going to rename this episode. It was going to be Menopause Saved My Life, which it did for Lisa, if we're being dramatic. But I think I'm going to rename it to Be More Lisa.
Be more Lisa. I love it.
I think if you're listening to this, what really struck me with Lisa is that we tell ladies that you've got to be informed. It's information, and a lot of the issues that we speak about are usually boiled down to lack of information. And Lisa's story, as you've just heard, she was having these horrendous, debilitating headaches and had gone to neurologists and, specialists to try and see what it was. It was affecting her work and her daily life. And then came to the realization herself from her own research that it was her hormones.
Yeah, I love that. I think, what she really, Lisa, I just feel like is so empowered, she was like, no, it's my hormones. I know it is. And I'm going to keep going. I know what I want. And I was really struck by the fact that, when they told her that she had cancer and they told her that she was going to have a hysterectomy, that whilst that was big, her relief at the hysterectomy was so apparent, because actually somebody was finally going to take away her uterus, and then she felt like that would be her ticket to getting on hormone therapy that would then get rid of her headaches.
Yeah, so the cancer was like a by problem that she was like, oh yeah, just deal with that, but are the headaches going to go? Which is admirable, that attitude of, and she said, I'd had friends and family members that had gone through cancer, and actually I felt lucky that there it was. And in comparison to some people that have to go through radio and chemo and are in fear of is it going to shrink it? It was just going to go. And actually at the same time, my headaches would go. And she said she woke up, didn't she? And it was like,
Gone.
the headaches are gone, you know.
Yeah. I also think that what a story, you know. Elisa is absolutely thriving in post-menopause, absolutely bossing it, isn't she?
Yeah, her story almost started after the hysterectomy.
Yeah, very much.
I think, because she then went into lockdown and was being allowed out, but only for radiotherapy, I think she said she had. But it really gave her some time to do a bit of soul searching and a bit of self-reflection and about her weight and where she wanted to be with her job. And the Lisa that you see now, you know, she struck me as someone that's always had it pretty sewn up. Whatever you throw at Lisa, she will. she's already found the solution for it or a way to deal with it. You know, just it was really wonderful to hear that, you know, she'd spoken to the healthcare provider about Manjaro, and there'd always been some issues with weight, particularly in the family, and how losing that weight had really enthused her to start her fitness journey.
Yeah, I loved her fitness journey. And I think, you know, I always say, you know, perimenopause and menopause is a critical health window. So the things that we do in this time or don't do will shape your future health. And that is not opinion, that is fact. You know, that is based in data. And that's just absolutely incredible when we look at Lisa's journey, because you know, she really has shaped her future health. And, you know, she's building muscle at a rate of knots. You know, she's lost weight. She's arguably healthier and fitter now than she was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And you know, this isn't a story that is just for one person. You know, this, I hope, Lisa's story and the story that Lisa's told today is inspiration for everyone. That, you know, if you're in the deep, dark depths of perimenopause or postmenopause or even menopause and cancer, then, you know, the future can be really bloody bright.
And just to add to the brightness, she's getting married. She got proposed to the other night. So congratulations to Lisa as well. There you go. I mean, what an inspiring story. So thanks again to Lisa. Wonderful episode. As always, if you'd like to fanny around with us, we'd love to hear your story. You can get in touch via Instagram, Fannying Around Podcast, or email fannyingaroundpod@outlook.com. Fannying Around was produced by Everything's Rosie, presented by Katie Pitt Allen and Rosie Frost, and sponsored by the Women's Health Clinic Europe and Clear Boost Supplements.